This is Stephen Kotler, and you're listening to Your Superior Self.
Hi, I'm Anita Murjani, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hello, this is Dr. Raymond Moody, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, Cultural Creatives. I'm Bruce Lipton, and I'm here to join you with Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Paul Selig, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, beautiful beings of consciousness? I'm Trey Downs, and this is Your Superior Self. And today on the show, I have a fantastic guest. Margaret Lynch Raniere is joining the show. She's an author, speaker, personal development coach, and trainer, and owner and CEO of MargaretLynchRaniere.com. She's earned a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering at Worcester Polytechnical Institute, and after an 18-year career, during which she won top sales award at a Fortune 500 company, Margaret left the corporate America to live her passion, helping others transform into their most powerful selves, their higher selves. And over that past decade, Margaret has gained wide recognition for her cutting-edge work integrating clinically proven energy psychology techniques with the chakra energies to create a systematic, step-by-step, highly effective approach to empowerment coaching. And she is the author of the Hay House publication, Unblocked, and she's here today to help us unblock ourselves from reaching that higher self, that higher consciousness where the all-knowing beings that we are, the all-knowing consciousness is there waiting for us. So here's a little small clip of what's to come.
Right? If I criticize myself all day long like that coach, what is that stopping me from doing? From taking the action that part of me thinks is really dangerous, really risky, really revealing, really going to make me vulnerable to other people's criticism or the worst thing of all. And I'll tell you what the worst thing of all that's under so like cut to the chase. What's under so many of our fears? And it's when I bring people through this and they finally get down to it, I'll say, and then what's the worst thing that can happen if I take that action and I'm not ready yet, or I'm not perfect, or people don't like it? And I'm going to find out and fill in the blank that I'm really not good enough, or I'm going to find out that I'm actually meaningless. I actually don't matter. And that's a big one for people who want to put themselves out there. It's like, I'm going to find out that no one does care. And so there's always a deeply rooted fear under there. And fear shows up in the heart chakra as I'm going to criticize the shit out of myself first. And by doing that, I protect myself.
And this quote or this clip is exactly what we do when we fear things, when we project our fear out into our reality, when we are, the ego is trying to protect us by creating a perception of being inadequate, of being not good enough, of being unworthy of the thing that we're trying to achieve. And then it creates these obstacles for us to prove to us, the ego is trying to prove to us that we are unworthy of that goal, of that consciousness, of that feeling of satisfaction, of empowerment, of success. Because it's like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. You need to stay in your lane. You don't need to go outside of your comfort zone because there's nothing out there for you. And that is all a lie. That is all fallacy. The ego is trying to stay in control. It does not want us to reach that level of awareness, that level of consciousness that we realize that we are higher than what we think we are as a being. We are so much more powerful than what we think. And what the ego tries to portray is this limited being, this limited self in this world of 3D reality that is incapable of doing magnificent things. And I'm here to tell you that is not true. I'm here to tell you that you are more powerful than what you think. And Margaret today is going to help us understand that more from a chakra approach and tapping into your chakra empowerment, energy, and to reclaim your passion, joy, and confidence. That's what she's here to do. So I'm very excited. Go to TreyDowns.com, leave me a message, let me know what your thoughts are. I really love hearing your journeys. I love hearing your stories about what you're doing, what you're pursuing outside of your comfort zones. So without further ado, here is my conversation with the great and powerful Margaret Lynch Raniere.
Hey, this is Margaret Lynch Raniere, and this is Your Superior Self.
Love it. Margaret, thank you so much for joining. I know we're going to have a great conversation. So thank you again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Trey. I appreciate it.
So your story is very interesting. How did you get started into this book is about unblocking the chakras. You talk about manifestation. You talk about all the things I'm into, energy, healing. How did this all start for you? Was that your background? How did you come into this modality?
Yeah, and it's really about unblocking empowerment energy, so people actually stand in an empowered way and start manifesting their life. And then I found the best way to do that was looking at the lens of the chakras, right? So I didn't come in it as a chakra person. I really started as a chemical engineer in my life, and that's what I did for 18 years. And so when I came into personal growth, I had one of those moments, that can change the course of your life, when I saw Wayne Dyer doing The Power of Intention. And I was like, what? Right? Because at the time I had manifested myself into a very easy sales job in technical sales. They love having engineers in technical sales. And I hardly work. So I was like watching TV in the middle of the day as a single mom. And I never had heard of anything in the personal growth movement. And that started me on this like crazy path where I was like, wow, I've always been a natural mentor. When I was young, I wanted to be a psychologist, but I sort of went the way of my engineering family, and found my way back to, what if you really can help people change? That's what interested me. And so that's what attracted me to things like tapping or emotional freedom technique, because engineers are super skeptical and we don't care about theory. We want stuff that works and works in a repeatable way. So that's how my brain works. So that's where I found hypnotherapy and tapping, because they're both highly clinically proven to help people get out of their own way. And so, law of attraction was big back then. We're talking, like 15 years ago at this point. And the problem with law of attraction is, it doesn't often work when you just have intentions. And what I wanted to do was to help people actually become their most powerful self. So they were like, I'm actually creating my life, not just imagining it and a few things show up, but I'm becoming this person who's making it happen. And over the years, I realized that's actually a bigger deal than I thought, right? I'm like, I'm just going to help people meet their goals. But for a lot of people, in order to meet your goal, you have to become this version of you that you aren't yet. And it takes more courage. It takes more passion. It takes less self-doubt, right? It takes this energy of enthusiasm that, some people naturally have, right? And other people don't. They struggle with it, right? They'll go to do something and then they're second guessing themselves and they're like, am I good enough though? Do I really deserve it? And so all of those issues are things that you can work on with tapping to lighten them up. Even like the self-doubt, which people think of kind of as an unsolvable problem, right? Unless you're the type of person where someone can say to you, just be more positive. And you're like, oh, that worked for me, right? So most of my clients would, no matter how hard I worked with them and what I tried to figure out and do, because I called myself a success coach, but I had no training except techniques, right? Like tapping and hypnotherapy, that it's actually a deeper issue. When someone really has a deeply rooted, the truth is, I'm not really sure I believe in myself, or I'm not really sure that I deserve all the good things that I want to manifest in my life. How do we move that up and out? How do we get to the root of that if positive thinking is not enough? And that's what fascinated me. And I did a lot of great work with clients just using the tapping technique the way I had learned it. It's a modality. But over time, when I discovered the chakra system, and everybody who's never heard of the chakras, it really doesn't matter. Or if you've studied the chakras for 20 years, it really doesn't matter, because some people look at them and they're like, oh, it's swirling energy. It comes from the yogic tradition. You there's a crystal, there's a color. And for me, it was like, no, no, no. For me, this is the map. This is the map of human consciousness. And most of the problems are at the bottom. The root of the problems are in the root, which is where a lot of people are not looking, because we're doing positive thinking, we're doing meditation, we're doing things that are wonderful, but they're not getting to the real root issue, because those are the issues that we actively avoid the most. It's the fear that's underneath a lot of the ways that we hold back, doubt ourselves, procrastinate, freeze, play small, right? All the things that people complain about. And I have to say, particularly women, right? Particularly women. And so, you know, I was 30 years old before I would speak at a meeting, because I was terrified that I was going to say something dumb. And it was always me in a room full of men. And I didn't believe in myself, because I just didn't. Right. So this is particularly an issue when women go to do something big. We feel all of this pressure, and we are really raised and socialized. And of course, it's men and women, but women really are socialized to not make waves, make sure people like you, be likable, don't ruffle feathers. And so in addition to the self-doubt, there's all of those other factors of, how are people going to react to me when I say, hey, I don't like this anymore, you need to pay me more? So for me, that's what inspired me. It was like how I can actually have someone move through a process where they start showing up differently, right? Not just shelf help, where I went to a weekend and I walked on coals and then I went back to my life. Right. So I like it to matter. And if you're not different in your life, then I haven't done my job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. Give everyone like a little context on the tapping. Like for one, like you're an engineer. How did like you said that tapping works well for you because it has repeated effects or repeated success, or it's just something that is a systematic thing that you can do it over and over again. Like, how did you find that, right? Like, I think you did a lot of research. I think I read in the book, you did a lot of research of like ancient techniques and you dove into it, but you were a single mom, right? For a while.
Yeah.
And what did
For a
that look
very
like
long
for you
time.
for a very long time? Why, first off, I mean, not to go too personal, but like, what did that look like for you? Like you're trying to figure yourself out, like you're a single mom, like,
Yeah.
like, I don't even know like how anyone would like what spiritually like triggered this movement. Was it the divorce? Was it something in your life? Was it a moment? Like, what did that look like?
Well, I mean, growing up, I remember being 6, 7 years old and interpreting expressions on my teachers' faces and knowing which ones had low self-esteem and which one didn't, and watching how people interacted, watching how my friends interacted. And by the time I was in 7th grade, I was acting like a therapist to everyone, trying to change people, right? Trying to make people feel better, saying that's not true. And then when you get to puberty, you start looking in the mirror and girls start looking at themselves and going, I'm so ugly. And so those moments live in me because I remember what it was like to be happy, fun children. And then I remember when it changed and all of my friends started to pick themselves apart. And I would look at them and I'd say, it's not true. It's not true. You're beautiful. You're amazing. You're like, look at, how can you not see what I see in the mirror? And it broke my heart so much that I decided, I guess people just can never change, right? So it was my calling from a young age. And so when I touched this new career, it was actually coming back to my true passion. But I had spent almost 9 years in a really bad marriage and trying to get out of it and trying to get out of it again and trying to get out of it again. And what I couldn't do was overcome the guilt of someone else begging me to stay, threatening me not, that I couldn't leave, like all the different things this person was throwing at me.
Well, what made it bad? I mean, besides that, like what made it bad? Was it just you guys weren't compatible? Were you guys just not meant? Like what, like why was it so bad?
I think it was the life purpose of both of us I think it was his life purpose and mine for him to force me to own my power. because it took that long. Because I would try to stand up for myself and then everything worked on me. Guilt, fear, intimidation, you're not good enough, you're being everything. And then I would just collapse and go back to saying it's hopeless. I just have to live my life like helping this person. And so I have to think of it in those kinds of terms, because by the time I got out, I had been forced to stand up for myself over and over and over and over. And then I come into this career of empowerment, right? And so it has to somehow be divinely timed. And once we were apart, he was a great dad to his daughter. It was just, we were a really bad negative mix, because I didn't want to be there and he didn't want to let me go, right? And so now you bring out the worst in each other. And my worst was being a doormat. So it brought out all of my worst people-pleasing behaviors. And so like, I have so much compassion for women who struggle, because it's like, that is my disaster story as well, right? And so this is the kind of work that you can't do from a high horse. You have to do from a very human, authentic, like, you should have seen me back in the day place, and always like owning our demons, because that is part of the problem. Is when we think we have to be perfect, then we can never take action. We can never be vulnerable by putting ourselves out there. But the tapping piece, I started with hypnotherapy because I read a couple of books on it. And I was like, that jam is cool. Like, that is terrifying and fascinating. And what you find out quickly as a hypnotherapist is that a lot of hypnotherapists incorporate tapping. And now tapping is like stacks of clinical proof, like stacks and stacks and stacks over the past 30 years. So it's the most highly clinically proven effective tool for anxiety and even for PTSD. So it does for war trauma, no one's ever been able to do for war trauma with any other psychological therapy, and even in a few, not that many sessions. So I took that tool, and people like Jack Canfield, even 15 years ago, were using it on stage, right? Some of the big, Tony Robbins was introducing people to it 15 years ago. And so I took that tool and I thought, if this can heal someone's freaking war trauma, it can help with I'm not sure I believe in myself, right? And so it's a powerful technique because it also works very quickly. And it's simply tapping on acupuncture points. Acupuncture points are more electrically active with the nervous system. And as you tap, and we have acupuncture points like on our hands, on our face, all over our body. And when you simply tap on them, you can watch on brain scans, and they even measure the cortisol level in your body drops. So the fight or flight comes down and down and down. And when the fight or flight comes down, people have a different perspective, and they have the opportunity to say, well, it doesn't feel as risky and scary anymore. And that allows energy to come up. Right. So the idea of Unblocked, my book with Hay House that just came out this year, I'm super excited about it, is that energy gets unblocked and your energy can rise. And the rising energy is passion and desire and courage, and just that, like, I gotta do it, where you just like lift up off your seat. And you always want to think about fear as a depressing, pushing down energy. Right? Like, I think I might want to do it, but what are people going to say? How are they going to react? Am I really good enough? And then suddenly you're like this. And so it's a pressing down energy, and it involves a lot of people are not aware of this, but it involves a lot of fight or flight happening. And so the mind is spinning, the inner doubt's going, that's all fight or flight. And so now you have this tool, turns off the fight or flight.
That's
and
awesome.
allows the better feelings to come up.
Yeah. Some people are fearful of like it actually happening too, right? Like they go do the things. Now they have to make a change. Like if something really were to happen, how do you even cope with that reality, right? You see yourself doing it, getting that promotion or manifesting that dream or that goal. Now it's here. it's reality. How do you adjust? And some people are freaked out by that, I think, right?
Well, for sure. And so like when we work with people, like and you'll see in the book Unblocked, it's really in 4 parts. And so there's a progression of personal growth, right? Some people have been wounded around their power, which means in your past, you were shamed, had a lot of fear, there wasn't a lot of safety, you had to prove yourself all the time, right? It's not the way most people treat their kids now, but it's how it used to happen a lot in the past, right? And so when the more people have been wounded, and then there's people who've been physically abused, right? And neglected and mentally tortured with criticism. So the more abused we have been around our power has not been allowed to shine, like from toddler years on, the more of the past we have to unload. So your question is so right on, because it starts with unloading the past for us. Some people are sitting on a volcano of pain and suffering and rage they've never been able to feel, because what's the point of feeling all that, right? And so with the tapping technique, we can move a lot of that. And now we arrive in the present moment at your situation. Now we're in the present moment. It's like the past is not weighing on me like a boulder. I actually feel free and empowered to say, what do I want? And that's fucking awesome, right? Sorry.
Oh,
now
that's good.
Now you take action, and yes, you have to deal with it, right? But the difference is, Trey, is that I'm now in the present moment. Like you actually mentioned present in your question, instead of the whole past weighing on me and all the things I think might happen and all the things that have happened before and all my fear, I can actually be in the present moment and go, okay, this is a little scary, right? And I might actually fail. And sometimes we do something big and someone's like, you suck, right? And it's like, okay, so I've taken this step and now I'm getting some pushback. And how am I going to deal with that in the present moment? And that's the difference is we're so much more resilient when we're not sitting on a volcano of pain that feels like, and this is how you know, there's some kind of thing that happens negative in the new step you've taken. And when it happens, everything inside of you says, see, I knew this was going to happen. This always happens. That's when you know that past is just living in you, like waiting to rear its ugly head. And so we want freedom. I mean, the tapping technique, one of the names of it is called emotional freedom technique, because we want to get freedom from that so that, yeah, our energy is moving. And when you're in the present moment, and I'm sure you've been in this situation where you're looking at something and you're like, it is risky. Like, I might sound like an idiot. I might fail. People might not like it. And then you check in and you're like, but yeah, I still want to do it. Like, this is like you said to me earlier before we went on air, like, this is my mission. I want people to hear this, to have a higher level of consciousness, to evolve, to live their, be their most superior self. And so that desire overcomes the risk, the fear, the hard parts, because you're present in the moment. And that's what empowerment is, right? We can always go home and be like, I'm going to solve for the weekend, or I'm just going to feel like crap, right? And then I'm back at it Monday. It's like ready to go, because I'm not going to let anything stop me. And what most of the things that are stopping us are all in here, right? Are all in here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I am my own worst enemy, because it's like we want things now. We want them right now. And I was just, I'm the, how do I even say this? Like, I receive signs from the universe, the cosmos, all the time, but I'm so focused, my ego kicks in and I start thinking about things and I can't get out of my own head, can't get out of my own way, that I miss them. And I don't see, I call them birds, right? Like, Christopher Columbus, like, he was going across the ocean looking for the new land. And his first signs were the birds, right? That he was in the right direction. Same thing with like manifestation, right? And I didn't come up with that saying, but I heard someone speaking of it recently. I was like, man, that makes sense. It's like, you don't really know where your path is. You don't know like where you're going. You have this mission, you have this passion, you know, if you clear all your past stuff and now you're in the moment, heads down, pumping away. I mean, a lot of people get frustrated because they're not producing those results right away, but they're not giving themselves enough time either. And like, you know, I have signs like there are signs that you can follow. I call them mile markers, because when you're doing your path, there is nothing there. Like it is the wild jungle. Like you're just making your path should not be somebody else's path. It should be your own.
Right.
And I get lost. Like I'm going through the jungle and I don't know where I'm at. I can't see, because it's like, you know, you're just in it, you're down in the weeds. And so like I call them mile markers, you know, whether it's a great conversation with you where it sparks up my heart, or I'll see something in a book, or I'll watch a YouTube video that pops up, and it's just like kind of that saying that keep going, right? Like keep going.
Right.
I think it was like I for some reason I had some downtime, or after I was meditating or after a run or something, and I don't know if you are a fan of hers or not, but Abraham Hicks, right? Like one of her videos came on, it was like, you know, what's the point of even rafting down the river if you just want to get out and go down to the bottom, right? Like that resistance, you know, that resistance. You get in the river, we get into the river, we go down in the floaty thing, we get out the end of the ride, because we want to feel the contrast. We want to feel the resistance. That's a part of life. That's the fun of it. That's learning. It's growth. It's like the contrast is to let you know what it is that you want, right? Like what is it that you lack? What is it that you don't want? That is why we experience that. And then we get lost in it because we want things now, but it's worth so much more down that line, because we've gone through all of that contrast and all of the resistance, and now we've fully earned, I shouldn't say fully earned it, but we fully enjoy it. We fully appreciate it, because we had to go through all of that. Like if it was just given to me right now, I don't know. I mean, I still would appreciate it because of all the things I've done, but I think I'm really starting to see the birds. I'm really starting to see like signs that are very apparent to me now. Like, you know, I have these plans, I have these visions, a vision board. I have all these things that I've written down for myself, and I'm seeing like I'm seeing more of them, and it's telling me to keep going and going and going. And, you know, conversations like this with you, Margaret, is like a huge fucking bird, you know, like I get to have you on, and we talk about these things that I really enjoy, and it's effortless. Like it's just, I get to do this, and it's be appreciative of the moment. And it's like, I sit here and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I get to have a Hay House author on my podcast, and we get to talk about chakras. And we're going to talk about my favorite one here in a second, the heart chakra. And I just had to take a step back and be like, man, like, you know how far I've come. And I'm sure you have these moments. You're like, damn, like my first episode, it was scripted. Like it was scripted. Like I literally had a script and I was reading it off of it. And I'm like, and now I'm sitting back and I'm just flowing from a higher state of awareness, right? Like just in flow states.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wanted to say that. I don't know how you connect with that. I don't know if you can relate to that, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, being in the flow and being present is such a great way of being in. It means you're in your chakras, you're in your body, you're not just up here, right? And so for most of us, because we have some level of fight or flight or stress response, with that, the more that we have stress, like I'll say on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you walk around on an average day? If 10 is like, I'm losing it. And a lot of people say to me, I think I'm at an 8, like on a scale of 1 to 10. And so when you're when your high numbers are on a scale of 1 to 10 for fight or flight or stressed out or worrying about something, for every degree you're out of your body and your energy is up here and it's more frenetic. And so what feels like thinking is actually fear running through the 6th chakra, which is the mind. Like the mind is a powerful thing. It's supposed to like give you vision, right? So you have an idea and then your mind is like, let me paint you the picture of that future, right? And then I will give you a plan and you just have to choose it. But when fear is running through the system and when we don't often catch it, that's when the frenetic thoughts start, where we can overthink, We can doubt ourselves. We can like zone out. It's all because of our energies up here. And then when you're, especially when people are doing what they love, they tend to be in their core, in their heart, right? In flow, where you're like moving through all your chakras. Something is, you're like, oh, I feel that. Oh, I feel intuition on that. And oh, I love that. And then your mind is like, I want to grab that thing she just said and come back to it. And so you're really in your core, which means in your body and present. And, just explaining to people what the fight or flight response does to their focus, their energy, their effectiveness, their power, and you lose contact with your real drive when you're in that sort of, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this place? That's not the same as feeling this is a full body yes, right?
Sure.
That's when you're in your core. And of course, like exercise and relation, like there's lots of ways that we can change our state and get in our core, like dancing and things like that. But it's so important to remember that we can't always trust this because it sounds smart, but it's not. Sometimes it's just fear running through, right? Especially when you can't sleep at night and you're thinking and you're thinking and you're thinking, right? It's like fear running through the mind. And that's why I love the chakras as a map, because people would, as a coach, and then now I train thousands of coaches to be able to get the same results that I get. Basically, I teach them to be me and do everything I do. And I worked thousands of sessions with private clients and then big groups. People would lead you all over the place and you would just follow them in a session and be like, oh, okay, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Oh, okay. What are they? And they come to the session with more thinking, right? And they're like, you know what I was thinking? And what you have to realize is a coach is like, nope, this isn't the issue. It's not more affirmations. It's not mental gymnastics. It's not another strategy. We need to go down to the first chakra and see what the fear is and see what's underneath the procrastination or whatever it is, right? And so the chakras for me was like, when we come across unsolvable problems in our own life, which procrastination is a good one, right? And self-sabotage, like, why do we get like right next to our goal weight or our fitness goal, and then we self-sabotage? Nobody knows why they do that. They don't know why they procrastinate. So when we hit issues that are like, I don't know why I do that, I don't even see myself doing it, and it's unsolvable, that's when it's a first chakra issue. Almost like 100% of the time. Almost 100% of the time.
Well, how do you tap that? Like, how do you unblock that? Well, the one chakra that I was just, catching up on before we got on here was the heart chakra with grief, right? Like,
yeah,
that's interesting.
That's a big one. It's supposed to be the most powerful chakra.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it. I mean, when I'm lined up, when I'm geared up, like that bad boy is on fire. Like, like I'm like that. I'm just, I mean, shooting my energy to you as well. But like, so if I'm battling with a grief, and I love your example of the small boy with the coach, just playing baseball, getting heckled by his coach, and comparing or making a comparison to our, small self being the coach. And if the coach was able to, text 24/7 saying how much we suck, that's what we do to ourselves. That's what we do to ourselves every day. I mean, I'm a victim of this as well. Talk about that.
We barely hear it when we do it. It's like people will, it's not even an aha moment for most people when they realize they do it. They're just like, yeah, of course I tell myself I'm a loser. It's true. Right. So the heart is supposed to be the most powerful chakra because it sits in the middle of the 3 lower and the 3 upper, and it integrates you, and it's wisdom, right? Because we know you can be smart, but not wise. Right. And so the heart has those 4 key energies. It's understanding, wisdom, compassion, and patience, right? Which no one has patience for themselves. And so that's the energy of the heart chakra. And if you think about it, that's like the perfect mom or dad energy, right? You look at a toddler who's having a tantrum and you're like, and they're like, I hate you. And you're like, right? Like, this is just a process. Then they're going to collapse. Then I'm going to hug them. Then they're going to fall asleep. But when we have a tantrum, right, or when we're messy and when we're resistant, we're super mean to ourselves. And so the heart chakra is the strongest chakra, but for most people, it's not. It's actually the first chakra because fear is running their life. And so if they look at most of the things that they want to do that they're not doing, or the things they have in their life that they don't like, which is often because of the things we're avoiding doing, like setting boundaries or being clear or asking for what we want, they're all driven by fear. And if we work through the layers, we get to fear. And so what happens when we learn that something is dangerous in the adult, it turns into criticism and perfectionism because it protects us, right? If I criticize myself all day long like that coach, what is that stopping me from doing? From taking the action that that part of me thinks is really dangerous, really risky, really revealing, really going to make me vulnerable to other people's criticism or the worst thing of all. And I'll tell you what the worst thing of all that's under so like cut to the chase. What's under so many of our fears. And it's when I bring people through this and they finally get down to it, I'll say, you know, and then what's the worst thing that can happen if I take that action and I'm not ready yet, or I'm not perfect, or people don't like it. And it's, I'm going to find out and fill in the blank that I'm really not good enough, or I'm going to find out that I'm actually meaningless. I actually don't matter. And that's a big one for people who want to put themselves out there. It's like, I'm going to find out that no one does care. And so there's always a deeply rooted fear under there. And fear shows up in the heart chakra as I'm going to criticize the shit out of myself first. And by doing that, I protect myself. And that's why it's so loud and it's so hard to deal with, because it's like, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. And don't forget, the heart has wisdom, right? How do we get wisdom? We've seen the whole past, right? And so the wisdom turns into, I've seen every mistake you've ever made, Trey. So when this voice comes on, I am so right about why you shouldn't try that. Because you failed this time, and remember that other time? And so the heart can be really, really in the dark side. We can be loving everybody. And on the inside, our heart is built around criticism of ourselves. And so like that's just, you know, that's one of those things that when I take coaches through this, because they experience the work that they're going to have to do, you can't do this kind of work without having gone through it yourself, right? That's the work where everyone will be like, wow, this is great. Oh, I feel that. Oh, I definitely have first chakra trauma. And then on the heart chakra day, everyone goes down in flames because they're just like, I had no idea how hard I was on myself and the grief that's in there, right? So heart chakra work, super powerful. And you're pretty much, when you do heart chakra work in the book, you're still working on all 4 lower chakras because it kind of all comes together there.
Mm-hmm. So when you're doing these sessions, right, with people and you're helping your clients, I mean, I've seen your website, you have like some pretty big, audiences at times, right? So do you take them up on stage and do the tapping and the hypnosis and everything like that too?
Well, what I'm typically doing is I'm training coaches in the methods, coaches and therapists. About 30% of the people I train are actually therapists. And so I'm training them in the methods. But in order to learn the method, you have to experience it first. So yes, sometimes I'm usually taking the whole room. Every once in a while, I'll bring someone up as well. But I like to make the whole room, the whole group go through the experience together as a group, because tapping everyone can do at the same time, right? So I lead the whole group through it, and then they experience it, and now they are more understanding for their clients, right? So now I'm going to go give this session. I'm going to build my own business and give all these sessions to my clients. I've actually been through it, so I know what it's like to move the inner critic, to feel that grief that it causes. I know what it's like to feel my courage energy come back up because I've turned off the fear. Right? So yeah, I do a lot of the process work because that's just non-negotiable. Like, you just can't learn this and then be an expert on it.
Sure.
You have to have experienced it.
Where did you get certified for hypnosis?
I went to several different back in the day. So that would have been like 2005, I think. Maybe 2004. There's a big one that's still around, a great guy named Cal Banyan Hypnotherapy is where I got more advanced training. Originally there was this little lady, and she was called the New England, it was the New England Institute of Hypnotherapy, and it was like one lady. So I was like, thought it was like a building, you know what I mean? It was like this one lady, and she had audio videos. But the more advanced stuff I took was with Banyan, and then of course they have conferences and you can do like 10 more trainings. So I did all sorts of like pain and all sorts of.
You ever done past life? Did you ever have you ever tapped in somebody, like, have you done an age regression and tapped into someone's past life before?
I didn't specialize in that. Like, I really blended everything in this book. There's a lot of like everything that we don't start with tapping. You actually start with a hypnotic process. I don't tell people that, but if you listen to the audio, I'm using hypnotic language to get you to close your eyes and visualize something. Then we tap. But I did not specialize in past life regression, but sometimes it spontaneously comes up, especially when people touch that first chakra trauma, because it's like, it can go all the way back to birth trauma. And then I'm telling you, people will hit like what's called existential fear. Like, this is going to sound crazy, Margaret, but I feel like if I put myself out there, I'm going to be imprisoned. And sometimes it has this big past life connection, right? Like, I'm going to be burned at the stake, I've had people say. And so, you know, if you believe in past lives, it makes sense to me that when someone has a big mission to be a truth teller and put yourself out there, that there may have been past lives where, you know, sometimes the truth tellers did not fare so well, right? But it's really, you know, sometimes it comes up spontaneously. It's not something I try to heal what I can in this life. You know, that's my focus.
Sure. Yeah.
But I have gotten past life regressions, which are super cool. Yeah. So I had a friend who specialized in it.
Let me hear your past life regression.
Super, super cool. So I had a friend who we went through hypnotherapy training together. Her name is Beth O'Connor. And she really specialized in it. Like, she was badass in the past life regression stuff. And so, you know, we're talking like 2006, but I had one with her where I sobbed hysterically every time I tried to tell someone about it. Like, for months, I'd say, oh my God, this thing came up, and I would be like, why am I crying again? So it hit something, but it was like, there were several members of my family, but most notably my sister Annie, who I'm closest in age to. And she's 1 year younger than me. We're like twins close, right? And so, oh my God, in the past life regression, I looked down and like, I was holding her, and my husband, who was probably like 17 years old, was like getting on this thing with a bunch of other men and like going off to the war. And I knew that he never came back, and that I was so despondent that I didn't properly mother her. And I was like sobbing because my whole life, like from the moment she was born, every picture, and by the way, there's 8 kids in my family. So there's 7 of us, right? I'm number 6, she's number 7. Every picture from the moment she's born is me like this. And her whole life, I took care of her. I treated her like she was my child. Like, even all the way through high school, I was always like taking care of her and making sure, you know, constantly. And she had like she still does have a lot more fears than me. And so it was so emotional to see that in that lifetime, I had sort of emotionally abandoned her. And it was like a flash where it all made sense.
Did you
it
tell
was-
her about this?
I'm sure I did back then. She was probably like, what?
She's like, nah.
Yeah, she was probably like, what are you talking about, Meg? I gotta go walk the dogs. Because
What,
none of my family is into any of this stuff.
Really? None of them.
Well, they will tap under duress, right? Because they know how to use tapping if they start to get anxious or like nauseous on a plane or something, you know, a bumpy plane. So they will tell me like, oh my God, it was so bad. Like, or I couldn't sleep. Like even my daughter would be like, I had hiccups so bad, mommy, I actually tapped. I'm like, what? People pay me a lot of money to learn this, right? These people have to be at like death's door to use it. But it, like I say to them, it's clinically proven, like it's the greatest technique you're not using. But you know, I mean, personal growth is not for everyone. You have to want something and be really sick of something. And then those are the people who are like, I'll do anything. Like I'll do out of the box, right? Because I actually want this to change. And those
it's not easy. It's not easy to bring people to like, I don't, it's not like I'm like above anyone whatsoever. I have a feeling. I have this intuitive feeling and this connection, this everything that I've been reading, concepts, you know, past life regression, reincarnation, consciousness, meditation, you know, experiencing like my higher self all feels right. Like it all makes sense to me. And that's what I really try to, you know, communicate with people. It's like not really what, you know, God is subjective. And, you know, this life, this reality is subjective. Like my reality is totally different than yours. So like God is subjective, and like the way that you experience that, whatever it may be. I mean, I just prefer not to have it and, you know, experience my God and a dogma. Like, you know, like I experience my God, my source, my true self, my higher, you know, whatever you want to call that universe, in different ways that feel good to me that I was never, you know, introduced to before. However, you know, I was raised in Christianity in fear, you know, like to fear my God, you know, like, you know, he was this dictator over me, and then I couldn't do certain things because it was a sin and I had to ask for forgiveness. I remember when I was like 12 or 13 years old.
Oh yeah.
I don't know where I was at, but like, they were like, are you saved? I was like, what are you talking about? Am I saved? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, is Jesus your savior? I'm like, I guess. They're like, well, you better, because if not, then you're going to hell. I'm like, well, he is my savior. Please save me. And like every week I was like, you know, going to, you know, confessing my sins, because it was like I was so scared. But then like, you know, and that faded off at some point, maybe when I was like 21 or something. But like later in life, when I was disconnected from my spirituality, something felt off, like something felt weird. Like I just felt this like there's something more to what I am than what this feels like. And I was married and had kids, and it wasn't that I wasn't happy in my life. It was just something more, something was pulling me. It was like, you know, it was like something. And then when I started following that curiosity, things started popping up, religious books, religious texts that I've never really read before. And they made sense to me. It was just like, oh, reincarnation, huh? Okay, I'm open to that, you know, like past life regression. Oh, and then the more that I read, the more that it makes total sense to me. But it's my belief. It makes my heart fire up, right?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to, like we were talking about in the green room before, you know, I want to be a co-creator. I want to be co-creator with the cosmos. Like I want to be able to manipulate this reality, because the more that I learn about quantum biology and quantum physics and quantum mechanics, like this reality that we're experiencing is way different than what I ever imagined it to be. And everything points to us being those co-creators. The only thing that gets in our way is ourselves, you know, with what you're teaching, the emotions, the feelings. And I'm so interested, not in like, you know, the things that I want to create, the things I'm trying to create is not egotistical whatsoever. Like I can go for the rest of my life doing what I'm doing, you know, professionally and be good, but I want to do a lot more and be that example for people that are questioning whether or not it's real, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that that it's hard to do things when you're one or two dimensional, right? So Carolyn Mace calls that living from one or two chakras, living just from an identity or living just in the physical world. And so the other way you can think about the 7 chakras is this is a very dynamic person. You have a full dynamic range that you're moving between, right? And so first chakra, meaning like you're grounded and solid, and people feel you and you feel other people, and you like stuff, right? You're not a hoarder, you're not living in crazy town. It's like, I feel the world because I live in the world, right? And then second chakra is like the party chakra. It's desires and wants and sexuality, and it's then, you know, next thing you know, we're cracking a joke, right? And then third chakra is that action center. It's like, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get this shit done. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to get a hit of dopamine from that because I just accomplished all those things, and then I'm going to make this happen, right? And then I can move. In another moment, you go into a meditation and all of a sudden your heart's like, wow, wow, wow. I feel the whole world and I love the worms and the earth, right? Outside my window. And then that can come right out of your voice, right? So you can sit with that, and then all of a sudden your voice is speaking a new reality. And then you have vision and you have insight, right? This connection to source. But we don't have to be one thing. We can move dynamically through all of these modes. And what's interesting is when you think about that lens, right? So those are all the levels of consciousness that are in our 7 chakras. And then there's people who believe that like we have other ones outside, like we have our spiritual life purpose point, and there's other chakras outside of our body. Mm-hmm. But when you meet somebody that you really jam with, it's usually because you meet on more than 1 or 2 levels, right? You can laugh at a dirty joke, and then you can be talking about the most serious, like mind-bending stuff. And then you can just love on them. And then you'll be like, let's go biking, right? And so when you meet on a lot of different levels with someone, you really connect. And when I find that when you're doing a lot of personal growth work, you tend to be drawn towards people that are firing on more cylinders. And that's really the best description. Like, who doesn't want to be firing on all cylinders, right? Who doesn't want to be able to move through all of these different dynamic range of who we are, right? Sure. And so that's another great way to think about the chakras. It's every level of your consciousness. I'm conscious of physical stuff. So I'm conscious of my body and in my health, and when I'm hungry and when I'm not, and money, right? My survival and money, and I'm managing my money. I'm not like crazy. And then that second chakra, I'm conscious of feelings and desires and needs and sexual impulses. And then at third chakra, I'm conscious of who I am as a doing machine. And then at the heart chakra, I'm conscious of how I'm in relationship with people, like how the win-win, like what I do is also a win-win for other people, and we all get there together, right? So these are all like, this is a different way of seeing the chakras. And then the fifth chakra is creation. We speak, and that's creation, right? This is the creation channel. How I represent myself in the world is what I say about myself and the way it comes through my voice, right? And then I get serious, and then I'm crazy. And so that's a whole level of consciousness. And then of course our mind state, that because at the mind, now we're in quantum physics, because you can close your eyes, you can see the whole universe. Right? And then you can go all the way into my DNA and be like, Margaret, it's another universe, right? And so this is an unbelievable chakra. And then seventh chakra is just pure, like, I'm conscious that I'm a spiritual being. I'm standing in this body, half animal on this planet, and I am an endless source of a soul, right? I am an eternal soul. And like, that's why I believe in past lives personally. Because why would you be an eternal soul and then have one chance on the planet?
All right.
And then have this much evolution? Or the whole time you were like an a-hole and then it's over.
Well, that's right. Like, people are like, how can we, people are like, how can we come here and live multiple lives? I'm like, you're here once. This is absurd that we're even here right now. The odds that you are here right now, like your parents meeting, their parents meeting, blah, 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 all the way down the line. And then people are like, and then I'm like, well, your body changes now. You lived in many lives this life. Like your soul has been through many bodies this life. Do you remember being a baby? Do you remember being, I mean,
Yeah, we
do you remember
renew
change?
ourselves.
Yes, you renew yourself all the time. Like I feel the same. I feel the same Trey, like the personality that I am, the source of power that I am has not changed. I am more conscious, from like ages 8 on to now, but that's just brain, maturation. Like that's just my brain waves, hitting that beta state when I'm 7. But before that, like my body's just been like I feel the same source, but my body is decaying right now. I'm 38 years old, but I'm just like, my body will at some point give out, and my eternal being will go on, and wherever that goes, like for some reason we forget, and we'll go back and we'll remember, and we'll do it all over again maybe. But
yeah, I mean, my thinking is that our souls have a chance to go through a process through multiple lives, to experience one reality and then another reality, to be a taker in one life, and the next life maybe we're vulnerable. We're a child with cancer the whole life, right?
Sure.
And we have to receive. And so it's to me it makes sense in the eternal soul idea, which, I mean, I'm Catholic. That's what we believe, eternal soul. That's going through a process of shifting. And like we all have known, you're an old soul, right? Like it's like not everybody is for some reason drawn to consciousness, and some reason looking for the bigger picture. And so I think that there are people who seem to be old souls. Right?
Yeah, I've been told that a couple times.
Genius.
I've been told that a couple times by a couple
Yeah.
of mediums, psychics. Margaret, I could talk to you all night. Seriously,
Thank you for having me.
No, this is awesome. Your book Unblocked, is awesome. Is that your husband, the PhD? Is that your
yes, that's David. Yeah. So David is was a psychologist who then went the extra years to become a Freudian analyst. And so when we met, I was like, I'm either going to be interesting or the Antichrist to this poor man. And luckily he was interested already in energy medicine, because what I'm doing is like a lot, right, for psychologists. And so, yeah, we've been together for almost 7 years now. And I waited to find the love of my life. And the way he has, what he weighed in on was really to help people with a therapy background make the connections to what I'm doing in the chakras, to something that would make sense to a psychologist or a psychoanalyst.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How can people find out more about you, connect with you?
And so I'd love for them to go to the website unblockedbook.com. I was just interviewed and the woman was saying, there's so much content on that page. You can have a life-changing experience. Unblockedbook.com, because there's some really awesome bonuses that we're going to make sure we leave on the page for your listeners. There's some great content that you can get on that page. And of course, you can click through there and get to Amazon and everything to buy the book. But the other thing that the book comes with is every chapter where you're actually tapping and working through the chakra work, because it's a transformational book. You're not going to just read it, right? It's actually activating. You're going to be tapping and visualizing and doing the exercises. All of those chapters have an additional video from me as well. And so there's video that comes with the book, and then there's all sorts of other bonuses. There's a chakra assessment bonus. So if you're interested, there's a video for me walking you through like 5 important questions to assess each of your 4 lower chakras, and you'll get a whole education just in that process.
I love it. Margaret, last question, kind of big. What do you want your legacy to be?
I'm really, I'm 50, turning 54. I'll probably be 54 by the time this airs. And so I've already moved into what I want the next 20, 30 years of my life to be, which is really transmitting everything I have figured out to do with people to give them a huge breakthrough to coaches and therapists. And so, you know, my big grand mission is really that ripple effect. Because when I work with someone, it's fantastic. They get, you know, I love when people read my books and buy my products and they have a transformation. But when I train a coach or a therapist, and they now are working with hundreds of people of their own, that's like a massive ripple effect. So that's what I want. I want to have a major impact on the way basically coaches and therapists work to really unblock and motivate people.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Go pick up her book, Unblocked. I have it. I love it. Margaret, thank you so much for joining the show. This has been fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful spending time with you.
It was awesome. Thanks, Trey.